times, until he accidentally saw the school's hottest baddie changing her clothes, becoming immune to her time rewinding ability. Now he will be forced to be her personal slave, who will have to please her in any freaky way she wants. The day everything began, Shirota was wandering through his thoughts about his pathetic low-life existence, especially how drastically it differs from his classmate Takamine, the school's hottest perfect goddess. He is always the type to hide in the background, and like usual, he hides in the storage room to eat his lunch. But then Takamine suddenly walks in and starts undressing. Of course, Shirota struggles. He tries not to peek, but as a man with degenerate needs, the model citizen rules don't work in this closed room. So he takes a look, and what he sees is the biggest and most plotful treasure in the whole school, all to himself. That view stamps itself into his memory, but the thing that troubles his mind is why the great Takamine has to get changed in secret and not in the toilet. Later that day, everyone receives their exam results, and Shirota never wishes for a good score. But today, he magically gets 52, which is pretty high for his smooth brain. But to everyone's surprise, the goddess Takamine, the always straight 100, somehow scored a lowly 98. The class buzzes with whispers about her broken streak. Takamine, looking shaken, asks if the teacher checks it twice, but he assures her that he has. From behind, Shirota notices Takamine's sudden change in demeanor. She steps away from the desks, and then, something unthinkable happens. Takamine slips her hands under her skirt and pulls off her peach protector. Shirota sees Takamine's perfectly steamed buns, and he can practically feel how bouncy they are just by looking at them. Then suddenly everything changes. He wakes up before he gets his exam results, thinking that he has a final destination vision because every scene replays exactly the same, except this time Takamine gets the perfect score, and Shirota fully remembers that she got 98 earlier. The whole day leaves him restless, questioning from how Takamine's results changed, to how that wet dream could be a reality, and even the wet dream earlier in the storage room as well. The questions pile up until Shirota finally works up the nerve to approach Takamine directly in the student council room. He awkwardly asks about her math score, the one that was supposed to be 98. Takamine's eyes sharpen in a split second, asking if Shirota ever spoke any word about this to anyone. Shirota gets chills down his spine with that terrifying glare, and he immediately says no. Takamine relaxes slightly, but she's not done yet, and she guesses that Shirota has already seen her. He thinks it's about the exam score, but Takamine dreadfully shoves him into the corner, referring to him already seeing her body back in the storage room. Shirota freezes, wondering how she could know, but instead of being angry, she releases one questionable smile on her face, saying that it is what it is. Then she makes him a deal. Takamine leads Shirota to take a seat and pours him a glass of water. Shirota trembles for his life, convinced that Takamine will poison him for his knowledge. His hands shake so badly he spills it, almost splashing Takamine's plots, but she swiftly dodges. Shirota immediately cleans that up, too scared to trigger Takamine's anger, but she says that it is a nice example. Suddenly she loosens her tie, slowly strips off her clothes, and once again the world resets. They both loop the time. Shirota feels it, and now Takamine's appearance changes. All of her clothes are soaking wet, and her milky soft plots are really visible beneath the wet fabric. She sits on the table and orders Shirota to wipe her down as punishment for dropping the water. Shirota obeys with his shaky hand. Then Takamine asks if he notices anything different about her appearance. Because Shirota is short-circuiting right now, he doesn't know what she's talking about, and she has no patience for stupidity, so she yanks his hand and puts it to one of her precious. With his attention lost in the moment, Takamine kicks Shirota's baby jewels like it's nothing to snap him back, calling him someone with zero sense of observation. She proudly says he's weak for her perfect body. Then Takamine points out her missing plot cover and her wet clothes. That's when it clicks for Shirota that things are different this time. Takamine finally explains that she has power. It's called Eternal Virgin Road, which is an ability that lets her loop the time every time she takes off her plot cover. But whoever sees her bare skin remembers what happened before the time loop, and that's why Shirota remembers. That explanation is too much for Shirota's small brain, and he barely understands a thing, but Takamine keeps yapping about her perfect grades and perfect body, while Shirota can only focus on the fact that she is half-dressed in front of him. She keeps rubbing her success in Shirota's face, saying that he won't understand a thing because he always loses. While for him, this woman has already lost her mind. Then she continues about how she got the power from when she once lost a race in a summer festival years ago because of a stomachache, pissed her pants in shame, and triggered her power when she stripped. So, she thinks she got her power for the glory of her glorious name. Inside his mind, Shirota thinks she really needs a doctor. When Takamine finishes her storytelling, she reveals why she tells him all this is because she needs a slave. Because every time she uses her power, she loses her undergarments. So she needs someone to constantly bring her new pairs. And because Shirota knows her secrets, he fits the job, as he's the biggest loser in the whole school, and no one will ever be suspicious if he becomes her little slave. Shirota is sick of this nonsense, so he immediately leaves the room. But Takamine stops him before he reaches the door, asking why he doesn't want to take the job. He bluntly says her power is sus, and the way she asks is wrong. He's out of it. Takamine doesn't want to lose, so she cuts his way and pulls him so they both fall with Shirota hovering on top of her. She takes his hand again to hold her juicy assets, alluring him with her smoldering looks, but suddenly she screams. Her loud noises drag everyone's attention to the council room. With their position right now, everyone quickly calls the police, and Takamine says Shirota has harassed her. Shirota is doomed. With Takamine's fake tears, everyone believes the damsel in distress that he is the new Diddy. He realizes that is her trap of forcing him to reconsider. And in the end, Takamine resets the time before the chaos, and with a smug grin, Takamine says that Shirata should be grateful after she saved him from being branded a creep. And as thanks, she demands he help her put on her peach cover. While everyone would die to be in his place, serving this masochistic woman, Shirota shuts his eyes as he dresses her.
Why are you gay?
Takumi notices, mocking him as a pathetic wuss for closing his eyes now, even though he peeked earlier. Shirota drops to the floor in apology, swearing it was an accident, and Takamine studies him, realizing that despite everything, she admits he still has his old good side. That night, Shirota dreams of Takamine, from how her body is vulnerable before him, to how she deviously tricks him, which ends with the police storming in to arrest him. He wakes up hyperventilating, still remembering that incident. Just then, his phone buzzes, and he sees that it's a message from Takamine, containing a picture of herself and a warning to him, reminding him that it's his first day as her slave. On the way to school, Shirota worries about what kind of task she'll give him. Behind him, the goddess herself, Takamine, arrives, and students swarm her with greetings as if she were divine. But he can't help but think how someone so adored like her could also be the devil in disguise. The boys nearby buzz with envy, but she doesn't care and leans into his ear, whispering to him to come to the council room immediately. Inside, Shirota feels nervous being in the same room with a psychotic hottie. Takamine teases him for being nervous, saying that they are master and slave, before cutting to the point by handing him a bag stuffed full of her peach protectors. She simply explains that his job is to carry the bag and be ready to provide her undergarments whenever she needs. Shirota tries to refuse, saying how dangerous it is, but Takamine reminds him that her power isn't patient, and if he resists, she can rewind time and drop him back into the moment when everyone saw him as a creep. That thought alone breaks him, and he reluctantly agrees. Takamine smirks, unbuttoning her shirt, promising him a reward for being a good little doggy. Shirota trembles as Takamine slides her foot under his, knocking him onto his back. She hovers above him, teasing, pretending she's about to take off her peach cover, until he shuts his eyes and begs her to stop.
You are gay.
She smirks, enjoying being on top, but eventually pulls away. She admits it would be better if he obeyed her without threats, and because she still has some sense of shame, she doesn't want anyone else to see her undergarments. But because she trusts him, Shirata is an exception. Her sudden bashful behavior catches him off guard, and his degenerate desire gnaws at him, but he shakes his head, quickly changing the subject by asking if she really feels nothing toward him. Takamine bluntly replies that she only wants to manipulate him into completely obeying her.
Okay.
Her honesty stabs at him, and he decides to leave for class, but she stops him with a tease, saying that the underwear isn't for his personal collection. Later in class, Shirota wonders what kinds of situations Takamine uses her strange ability for. Just then, the teacher asks her to read a poem from their book. She reads it with grace, every word flowing with meaning. When she finishes, the teacher praises her. Shirota thinks about how amazing she is, believing that she won't use her ability too often. But then a breeze comes through the window, and the teacher tells a student to close it. Suddenly, Takamine stands up and says she wants to redo it, shocking Shirota. In front of everyone, she removes her fish smell repellent, activating her ability to turn back time. Everything rewinds to just before she reads. When the teacher calls on her again, she begins once more, this time perfectly timing her voice with the wind blowing into the classroom. Her performance takes everyone back in their imagination to an ancient world, simple and pure. With the wind at her side, her reading feels like a scene from history. The entire class gives her a standing ovation. She looks straight at Shirota, smiling in victory. Shirota realizes that if she uses her power for even small things, he'll be the one putting her undergarments on her countless times. At that moment, Takamine throws a paper ball at him, telling him to hurry up. Shirota knows it's time for his task. He looks around and decides it's impossible to get her undergarments back on right now, so he plans to wait until break. But Takamine, already prepared, leaves his eraser on the floor near her, signaling him to pick it up and use that chance to help her. Though hesitant, Shirota remembers how she can rewind time to save him from jail. With no choice, he forces himself to act. With her undergarments hidden in his pocket, he goes to pick up the eraser, and when no one is looking, smoothly slips them onto Takamine's slender legs, before walking back to his seat. Seeing no one notice, he quietly celebrates his success. But when he looks back, he sees that he didn't put them on properly, and they're about to slip. Takamine signals for him to fix it, refusing to adjust them herself. The teacher starts calling names to hand back books, and Shirota imagines the horror of Takamine walking to the front, her undergarments falling to the floor, then finding a way to blame him, ruining his life. Then he remembers what she once said, that although she'd be embarrassed if others saw her undergarments, she doesn't mind if he's the one to see them. With that in mind, Shirota makes a decision. When her name is called, he goes to the front instead. The teacher questions him, but he lies, saying he misheard. Since he's already there, the teacher tells him to hand Takamine her book. She thanks him as he does, and he wonders why he feels the need to protect her. As he turns to leave, Takamine traps his foot with hers, ordering him to fix her undergarments properly. With no way out, Shirota uses his leg to slowly push them up her thigh, feeling her juicy warmth as he does. Suddenly, the teacher calls Shirota's name. Startled, he pushes too far, brushing against her sweet spot, and making her let out happy squeals. When he asks if she's okay, she insists she is. Later, in the student council room, Shirota tells her she's unbelievable, but she replies that she was only testing him to see what he's capable of. When he asks what she would have done if he hadn't brought her book, she casually says she didn't think about it, because she fully trusts him. Then she asks why he saved her from embarrassment, and he doesn't know the answer why. Takamine teases him, suggesting it's because he wants to be the only one who sees her peach protectors. He denies it, but she can tell it's true, and admits that knowing he's obsessed with her makes her happy. Shirota then asks about the happy noises she made earlier, but she silences him, ordering him never to bring it up again. Later, after class, the teacher asks Takamine to return the paper exam to the lab. She accepts with a smile, and instantly all the Simpson class crowd around, offering to help. She keeps smiling politely as she refuses, but her irritation builds because donkey-headed Shirota still doesn't realize what he's supposed to do, so she rewinds time. But on the second attempt, Shirota still doesn't catch on. Takamine has to glare at him until he finally remembers his role to be her slave. Shirota jumps in to volunteer. In the hallway, Takamine scolds him sharply for forcing her to use her power just to remind him of his duty. Shirota bows his head, apologizing as he slips her undies back on, finally realizing his position. They continue toward the lab, but their way is blocked by other students eager to help Takamine. Shirota is stunned at how adored she is, as she really does seem like a goddess at this school. He thinks that if he had even a fraction of her privilege, life would be so much easier. To his surprise, Takamine speaks with her fans warmly, casually remembering lots of details about their lives. Later, Shirota tries to make small talk, praising her for how she handles multiple dudes so easily. Takamine snaps back, telling him not to compare her to a fun hub actress who plays free-for-all. But even if she was one, she still wants to be number one. Shirota is shocked at the wild comparison, then corrects himself, admitting he admires how she can talk to people she barely knows. Takamine proudly explains that it's part of her role as student council president. Impressed, Shirota asks how she knows everyone's names. She casually replies that she memorized them all within a day of becoming president. And because everyone knows her, she must know everyone in return, or she'll lose. Shirota can't believe how competitive she is about something like that, but he respects her for working hard to get where she is and wonders what drives her to push herself so far. Then Takamine mentions she knows all students' profiles, including his. She starts spilling where he lives, his favorite gooning category, and even his impressive 9-incher. Shirota is amazed but embarrassed at her spilling tea about him, and he blurts out asking if she really knows this much about everyone. That question makes her freeze, as she doesn't like being doubted. With a sharp glare, she asks if he's implying she's a stalker. Then she coolly points out another of his traits, extremely self-proclaimed, and with a sly smile, a little degenerate. Shirota freezes at her last remark, and Takamine leans in, asking if she's wrong. Flustered, he turns away, insisting he won't answer, and that she wouldn't want to be looked at with freaky eyes anyway. That stings her pride, so she tackles his leg, sending him crashing to the floor. Then, while standing over him, she challenges him, asking that if she likes being looked at by him, what would he do? Shirota's mind spins, seeing that the school's goddess teases him this far, even unbuttoning her shirt just to see his reaction. In a panic, he blurts out that they'd need to be a dating couple before he could answer that for real. Takamine blinks, then laughs, fully not expecting that answer. Dropping the act, she sits beside him, asking softly what he meant by being a couple first. Shirota panics, insisting he didn't mean it as a wish, and she laughs again, enjoying how rattled he is, then rises and leaves him, while saying that she likes his answer. Shirota is left baffled. He wants to chase after her, but he trips on the stairs and tumbles down. Later, when he wakes up, he's in the clinic, his head resting on Takamine's lap. Startled, he asks what happened, and she explains he fell from the stairs, and out of kindness she turned back time and carried him here. When he thanks her, she pushes his head back down into her snoo-snoo, declaring this is his new profile. Since he resists her teases, she labels him a weak virgin, which in her eyes means he's a serious guy. For a brief tender moment between them, Takamine ruins it by mentioning she isn't wearing anything underneath, and Shirota bolts upright. Realizing it's after school, he panics, as he's missed his remedial gym exam and must redo the marathon laps. Determined, he admits he wants to win at least something for once, and that determination impresses Takamine. So Takamine decides to watch the remedial herself, but she doesn't make it easier. Halfway through, Shirota lags far behind, so Takamine stops his run, pointing out his horrible running form, but the close contact and her sweat-soaked see-through shirt make him fold like a pretzel. She orders him to finish the race in 30 minutes, but despite her encouragement, he fails. The others simp him for disgracing Takamine after she fixed his posture, but she declares they'll keep going until he succeeds. With that, she strips off his plot armor and rewinds time. But this time, Shirota barely keeps up but starts planning his apology. Takamine follows the boys on a bike, deliberately showing off her cakes for all to see. Shirota panics and sprints after her, not wanting anyone else to look at his precious, and against all odds, he finishes first. Takamine reminds him he still has one last job, and behind the trees, he slips her peach cover back on. She teases him, asking how it feels to win under 30 minutes. Exhausted, he hadn't even realized he'd done it, and for once, Shirota admits to himself that he never thought he could win anything, especially with his grades. The remedial may not mean much, but he's happy. His genuine joy amuses Takamine, and she decides to head home. That night, Shirota remembers he still has her bag of underwear. He plans to return it tomorrow, but just holding it sends his imagination spinning. Before he can peek inside, Takamine calls, demanding her bag back as she wants to go for a night run. Shirota hesitates, suspecting it's just another test, but then she sends a picture of her with no pepperoni protectors, claiming she'll go out without them since he didn't respond. Panicking, Shirota dashes out to meet her. She sends another picture from a nearby park, with a random guy in the background peeking at her. Shirota's mind unravels with worst-case scenarios where she gets played like a toy. In truth, Takamine had planned to fake an apology and go home, making it all a tease. But when Shirota actually shows up, she's secretly glad, though she hides it under her tsundere mask, praising him for his quick response and knowing his place as her slave. Shirota insists it isn't about obedience, and that if something bad happened, she couldn't rewind time, because she isn't wearing underwear. Takamine is caught off guard by his sweet sentiment, but covers it with another tease, asking if he imagined her being touched by someone else. Flustered, he denies it, saying he was simply worried. Her face softens, and for the first time, she thanks him sincerely. She admits he's the only one who worries about her, and because he knows her secret, he should feel honored, as he's special. Her words sting as both praise and mockery, but Shirota can't help smiling. Knowing her in a way no one else does fills him with warmth. From that moment, he silently vows never to take his eyes off her again. The next day during swim class, Takamine dives in and blows everyone away with her speed, as she beats Uko, the ace of the swim team, who literally went abroad to train with Michael Phelps. When she steps out of the pool, water dripping off her body like a juicy snack, the crowd glaze her exquisite physique. Even Shirota is frozen, jaw dropped. But before he can process it, Takamine casually says she wants to redo the race and suddenly activates her powers. Time rewinds and the race restarts. This time she swims on her back, face up, making sure the entire class gets a full view of her jiggle physics in action. Shirota can't understand why she needed a retake, but that perfect angle makes him want to do things involving a Vaseline and some tissues. After finishing first again, she walks straight to him and asks why he isn't curious about why she redo the race, but Shirota simply says that he didn't have the time to ask. She says she just wanted to make a lasting impression, one that will make her the material to the boys' goon sessions, and then teasingly asks Shirota which performance gave his junior the full salute. Shirota freezes, realizing that if he admits he liked the backstroke, that means he was ogling her body. But before he answers, Takamine notices his blush and teases him harder, saying that his eyes already gave her the answer she wanted. Then he asks how she rewinded time despite not wearing any plot protectors, and she reveals she sacrificed one of her pasties this time. But just the thought of her only wearing one pepperoni protector makes him fold harder than 1,000 dudes in front of Bonnie Blue. Takamine leans in close and whispers in his ear to stay after class. That evening, she drags him to the mall to buy new peach protectors. Shirota is sweating bullets, not knowing where to look. When he asks why he's even here, she smirks and says he has to come since he's her slave now. Then, just to torture him, she asks which pair she should buy. He mumbles that any is fine, but she won't let him off the hook, so she makes him pick. He grabs at random and accidentally picks the most outrageous Mia Khalifa coded set in the store.
Wow, beautiful!
Takamine laughs and models it against her body, looking like she's about to go rounds of hanky-panky. Panicking, he swaps to a pure white one to show she's innocent, then flips to a black one because she's secretly evil. Then he considers pink for her kindness, but in desperation ends up picking blue. When she asks why, he mutters that he has no reason. She smirks and pulls him into the changing room. Shirota freaks out, saying he shouldn't be here, but she tells him to kneel as he's the one putting them on her. She lifts her skirt, showing she's wearing thick tights so he won't see anything. He tries to act cool, but his face drifts dangerously close to her. Snoo, which smells like flowers as he slides the fabric up her legs, but the scent and the warmth is too much, causing him to pass out on the spot. Later, she asks again why he picked the blue pair. Shirota tries dodging, but she pins him against the wall and demands an answer from him. He blurts out that because she looks like someone out of his grasp, he chooses blue as it resembles how she's as high as the blue sky and as deep as the blue sea. Takamine says nothing, just steps out at her floor, leaving him panicked, thinking she doesn't like his pick. But after a pause, she blushes and quietly admits that if she wears it, her power Eternal Virgin Road won't be a thing anymore. The next day, Shirota catches a cold and goes pale during class. After school, he tries to head straight home, but Takamine insists on walking him back since she lives nearby. At his place, she's surprised his room is actually clean, then instantly checks his laptop for his secret stash of Johnny Sins. He slams it shut, panicked. She laughs, saying she has to nurse her slave before it becomes useless. When she asks if he eats properly and he admits he doesn't, she offers to cook. He refuses, but she ignores him. She teases him, asking whether should she only wear an apron while cooking, and even wipe his sweat, but Shirota can't take it anymore, snaps, shoves her out and says he can take care of himself. But Takamine rewinds time, and suddenly, there's a steaming bowl of rice on his table and a fresh towel beside it. She says she made it from his kitchen and will reheat the towel if it cools. As he eats, Shirota wonders why she flips between teasing him mercilessly and being extremely kind to him. Later, when he's in bed, Takamine slips into the room to check if the food was okay. He says it was, but to his surprise, she climbs into bed beside him, saying body warmth is important to fight the cold. He protests, but she rewinds time again, removing any sweat from herself so she smells clean. He says that's not the point, but she just leans closer, asking if he'd prefer she smelled sweeter. He gives up and turns away, but she cuddles him, telling him to think of her as nothing more than a hot water bottle. Shirota's heart races, knowing he's in bed with the school goddess, but Takamine softens, admits she went too far, and apologizes. Then she presses his face into her body, saying it'll help him relax and sleep better. She warns him not to get funny ideas, as it's just for his health, but to his surprise, for the first time, Shirota doesn't feel anything dirty, but instead he feels safe. Gently he asks if this is just her being nice to ensure he sticks around, and that question catches her off guard, her heart pounding. She opens her mouth to answer, but Shirota falls asleep before she gets to answer. On her way home, she sees kids running and remembers her lonely childhood. Back then, she never had friends. But once, while she was feeding a black cat, Shirota appeared and gave it milk with her, and since that day she started liking him, but he doesn't even remember. Back at her place, she plays with that same cat Kuro, and mutters to it about how stupid Shirota is for thinking that her being nice to him is only to keep him around, and not because she actually cares, which she does. Days later, on the way to school, Takamine casually brings up the homework due that day. Shirota is caught off guard, as he thought it was meant for summer and he hasn't touched it. She sighs in disappointment, as though pitying the teacher for being stuck with idiots like him. With a smug look, she offers her help, but only in exchange that he pledge his eternal servitude and bark for her like a good doggy. Shirota is annoyed at the mockery, but her reminder of his terrible grades cuts deep, so he declares that he will work hard on his own to salvage the situation through class and lunch. Hearing that, she wishes him luck but reminds him not to neglect his slave duties. Later in class, Shirota works hard on his assignments. Worried if he'll finish in time, Takamine is called to write on the board, but her flawless image is spoiled when the teacher bumps into her. Shirota braces for her to use her powers to rewind to save her aura, but to his surprise she lets it be and just keeps writing. Later, while Shirota is still working, a girl thanks Takamine for advising her to buy a watch for her crush, but she also mentions a new version of the watch came out the very next day, and Takamine hesitates, thinking she should change the past because of that, but chooses not to rewind, instead telling her to exchange it. By the end of the day, Shirota finally finishes, only to find Takamine stumbling weakly in the corridor. Alarmed, he rushes to steady her. She brushes it off as a fever, but her pale face betrays the truth, that this is the price of her restraining from using her power. She collapses, leaving Shirota certain that his suspicion is right, that she refused to rewind to avoid bothering his studies. He urges her to rewind and restore herself, but she refuses, pushing the burden onto him. When he hesitates, she reminds him that his finished assignments will vanish if she rewinds. Shirota says it's fine, as he can redo them, and that he prefers seeing the usual happy Takamine, which makes her blush. As her skirt lifts, he carefully slides her peach cover down, but instead of reverting the entire day, she only rolls back a few seconds, erasing the moment she fell, saying with pride that she refuses to rewind time just because he said so. Walking down the stairs together, she promises to look over his assignments so this doesn't happen again, and that she will help him. When summer break arrives, she invites him to her house to help him study. Alone together, she corrects his mistakes, rewinding whenever he blunders a question. Then she leaves to make some coffee, but not before revealing that her parents are away for days, and the words linger in Shirota's mind until she leans close, reminding him he's wrong again. In one motion, her shirt lifts. Her plot cover slips away, and time rewinds once more. As the time keeps ticking, she teases him, saying that he's deliberately playing an idiot so he can stay overnight and do the dirty with her. His stunned expression only fuels her imagination, but she claims they aren't alone, as Kuro, her cat, is still there. Knowing he can't have pets at home, Shirota wishes to see it. She warns it might distract him, but agrees, muttering softly that the cat probably misses him too. But she returns without it, saying that she doesn't know where it is, so instead she wears cat ears, declaring herself as the substitute. He protests in disbelief, but she prowls on all fours, hips swaying, voice mewling. His body betrays him, and his junior stirs as her act grows bolder. When she kneels, arching her back, the sight nearly folds him. She continues by curling into his lap, declaring she will continue until she's satisfied. By the time his homework is done, it's already night, and he blames her for her fan service, which causes this. Takamine warns of rain, and he dismisses it, only to open the door to a downpour. Calmly, she suggests he stay the night, and lists all the necessities from spare futon, food, bathroom, before slyly offering to wash his back in any way he pleases. He folds instantly, but before the argument can continue, a scratching at the door signals Kuro's return. She brings the cat inside, expecting him to remember the little cat, but he just plays with the cat casually, leaving her in shock. The lights suddenly die, plunging the house into darkness. Takamine masks her change of mood with cold composure, seating herself on the bed and demanding a story to pass the time. When Shirota fails, she chooses the theme of school memories. He recalls after-school game and gooning sessions with friends, but she grows irritated at him not remembering. He then asks for some water, but out of anger, she drains a water bottle in frustration. She asks for another story, but when he shares his childhood nickname, she shuts him down again. Believing he bored her, Shirota asks to use the shower, but Takamine leaves, then returns in a towel, saying out of spite that he can't use it. She lies down and faces the wall, sulking at him not remembering. Shirota, feeling guilty, tries to think of a better story. He suddenly remembers something deeper about a stray cat he once cared for with a short-haired girl, and how he used to always bring umbrellas and towels for the cat. She asks what happened to the girl, and Shirota admits that the girl once confessed to him, but he never answered, and she eventually vanished along with the cat. He admits he regrets losing touch, and he never learned her name. Takamine, secretly the same girl, sits before him, silently urging him to connect the dots, and asks what he'd do if he met her again. Instead, his dumb brain asks if she knows the girl, which disappoints her, but she regains composure and praises him for remembering. Suddenly, thunder cracks, startling her so violently that her towel slips away, baring her body completely, and she jumps on him when lightning strikes again. Shirota finally realizes she's scared of lightning and used his assignments as an excuse to keep him there. Lying on top of him, she whispers that she wants to undo this moment, but since her powers don't work on him, she begs him to erase it from her memory. In the end, she stays pressed against him, trembling in his arms. And for the first time, Shirota sees her vulnerability laid bare, a side of Takamine no one else has ever seen. When the light comes back on, Takamine quickly stands, wraps a towel around herself, and heads for the kitchen, saying she will cook something. Shirota tries to protest that he is fine, but she brushes it aside, claiming it is not for him, though she still promises to prepare his share if he plays along. Since they are alone, she suggests a roleplay as newlyweds, and the rule is simple. If either one refuses, they will never be in a relationship for the rest of their life. Shirota grumbles about the nonsense, but for Takamine it is perfect. To her, he is the easiest to play with, an idiot who cannot resist. With the game established, she slips away to cook. When Shirota checks on her, he is caught off guard by the sight of Takamine looking like a whole dessert in her apron. Before he can react further, she insists he treat her like his beloved wife. Awkwardly, he complies and asks her to wear some peach protector. Amused, she tells him to help her, and he hesitantly drapes some plot armor over her body to hide the cheesecake display. With that done, she asks him to help with the soup, but Shirota is so distracted by her presence that he ends up burning it. Annoyed, Takamine rewinds time and scolds him lightly for being careless. Dinner is eventually finished, and when Shirota admires her cooking, she interrupts him with a gentle smile. Sitting close beside him, she insists on feeding him as couples do. Trembling and flushed, he lets her. The moment grows heavier when soup spills onto her thighs. He panics, worrying it is hot, but before he can act, she twists the situation, telling him to eat it from her, not wanting to waste the taste of soup mixed with her sweat. She even stands, giving him the full view of her smooth skin and legs. Just as he falters, she rewinds the moment. Laughing it off as a joke, she declares she still has her dignity, leaving him groaning in confusion, unsure what is real and what is only a tease. They finish dinner, and afterwards, Takamine offers to prepare the bath. Shirota volunteers to do the dishes so she can go first, but she refuses, insisting they should bathe together like a couple. When he reacts in shock, she simply laughs and says it was another joke. Later in the bathroom, he finally relaxes, looking for the soap. But suddenly, Takamine enters, wrapped in nothing but a towel, smiling deviously, and says that just because she jokes around does not mean she stops. She circles him with a look that makes him nervous, then teases him with the thought that he might use her shampoo in degenerate ways. Before he can defend himself, she drops the towel, revealing an overly revealing swimsuit, one that borders on making this video rated R. He tries to leave, but she stops him, saying she will wash him, and she calls it training for when she becomes a wife. Shirota freezes, stunned at how far ahead she imagines, but she brushes it off as repayment for staying over. He reluctantly accepts, though he warns her not to go overboard. Inside, he is already fighting urges, his self-control cracking under her presence. When she begins rubbing soap on his back with her bare hands, he tries to distract himself by counting numbers in his head, but it fails when something soft and bouncy presses into him. Alarmed, he spins around, only to find her holding 2 balloons filled with water, smirking at his panic. When she finishes his back, she shifts to his front side and says it is time for shampoo. Shirota protests that she promised only his back, but she twists her words, saying she never specified which part. She begins washing his hair, her hands slow and careful. He tries to endure, but then she mentions casually that the shampoo is hers. The thought strikes him hard, realizing that he will smell like her. His body reacts, blood rushing downward. Desperate, he tries to stop her, but in his clumsy movement, his hand falls against her plots. Both freeze for a moment, and then Takamine smiles deviously, teasing him again for his lack of patience. He panics, jumping into the tub to hide himself, but when she realizes what his hands are trying to hide from her, she quickly excuses herself, declaring her mission complete. Later, lying in the guest room, Shirota replays everything that happened in the bathroom, wondering how Takamine could go so far with him. His peace ends when she knocks, telling him to set an alarm, then enters without waiting. She leaps onto him in a nightgown that leaves little to imagination. Hovering over him, she reminds him her position is always on top. Shirota realizes that her relentless teasing comes because he has seen her weak side, and this is how she reasserts control. Days later, the summer festival arrives, and Takamine brings him along, saying she must patrol for misbehaving students to avoid any accidental offsprings. Before they even begin, she casually asks him to help with her missing underwear, saying that she didn't bother wearing one for the day. Surprising Shirota, He tries to reason that there's no hiding spot, but Takamine quickly pretends that her sandal broke, giving him a reason to slip away into a quiet spot where he dresses her in secret. Later, as the fireworks approach, she drags him away, searching for the perfect view. On the way, Shirota overhears whispers from others about how unfitting they are as a couple, comparing how chopped he is to how much of a hot babe Takamine is. Strangely, the words excite him, and he wonders what it would be like if it were real, if she would be gentler, sweeter, and ask him directly to spend time together doing the hanky-panky. The thought is broken by the fireworks bursting above them. Takamine sighs, saying there is no trouble here, and rewinds time to try another location. At the bridge, Shirota notices couples exchanging drinks mouth to mouth. His mind drifts, wondering if they could do the same. When she asks for a drink, he imagines it for a moment, but instead she has him help with her underwear again. They repeat the process in multiple locations, each rewind leaving her more drained. Eventually, they end up alone with no trouble found anywhere. Slowly, Shirota realizes she is not rewinding for duty but to replay moments of a date, moving through the kinds of places couples usually go. He feels suspicious, thinking that maybe what Takamine truly wanted is the excuse of a date. He looks at her then, and in that instant the fireworks bloom above her, painting her face with light. He is struck by her beauty, unsure whether it is her or the fireworks that leaves him breathless. She smiles warmly, saying this time they are just on time. He agrees, murmuring that it is beautiful, though he no longer knows if he speaks of the fireworks or of her. But for once, she smiles at him soft and sincere, and she admits she is happy too. A few days after the festival, Takamine asks Shirota to hang out during the campus open house. She wants to visit Oogaku, the school for geniuses like her and Einstein, but just thinking about it makes Shirota feel uneasy, as he knows he's as smart as girls who do OnlyFans. When Takamine asks what he plans to do in the future, he admits he isn't sure, but to her, that is the wrong answer. She expects him to say he will follow her anywhere, no matter what. She doesn't care about his choice, but he still has to remain her slave. But to Shirota, that is just another way of saying he has to get into the same college as her. She adds that as long as he fulfills her conditions, everything will be fine. And Shirota groans, thinking this is far from freedom. While talking about freedom, Takamine makes a video call and shows him her new spicy clothing set that leaves almost nothing to the imagination. Shirota nearly chokes when he sees it, and she casually reminds him that he was the one to pick something like this the first time, and without hesitation she shows the bottom view, which is devastating to him. Takamine teases that maybe one day in college she can become a sugar baby for seniors and have a free-for-all with them. Shirota immediately stops the thought, knowing it is a boundary she shouldn't cross even as a joke. She twists it into a threat, saying that if he doesn't want her turning out that way, he has to follow her to the same college. As a reward, he is the only one allowed to see her like this. Shirota tries to argue, pointing out that everyone knows his grades aren't enough to pass the entrance exam anyway. While they are still on the call, Kuro suddenly jumps onto her table, knocking her phone down. The call ends, but she quickly sends him a text threatening punishment if he fails to get into the same college as her. A few days later, they visit the Oogaku campus. Shirota arrives first, and when Takamine appears, all eyes turn to her. Even though she isn't dressed like she's worth $20 an hour, she notices and teases Shirota for staring too much, while he is embarrassed but can't deny it. Suddenly, she stands in front of him, explaining that her college life depends on him, as because he has served as her undies carrier, if he isn't around and someone sees her changing, it could be leaked, and she might end up in scandal. To Shirota, that logic is insane, as changing underwear in class is already wrong, and there are bathrooms for a reason. Takamine is surprised by his logical thinking, and praises him for it, but she is disappointed that he doesn't fall for the bait. She changes the subject, asking about his plans. Even if he hasn't decided yet, she insists he thinks seriously this time. Shirota admits he is considering working instead of attending college, but Takamine freezes for a moment, then presses for reasons. He explains that his younger sister will be starting school the next year, meaning more tuition fees for their parents. And because he doesn't want to be a burden to them, he feels there is nothing in college that interests him. Rather than studying half-heartedly, he thinks it is better to work and repay his parents' kindness. Takamine is surprised by his maturity, but she still tries to reason with him, saying that he can get a part-time job in college and still be her subordinate, of course. When the campus orientation begins, Takamine seems slightly off, but she quickly composes herself and joins the presentation. When it ends, she boldly raises her hand and asks about the benefits of graduating from the institution. Everyone is surprised by her question. The lecturer explains that students receive certificates for high achievement, and in rare cases, lecturers provide recommendation letters for job applications. Takamine leaves it at that, but somehow she is dissatisfied and rewinds time. She adjusts her question and asks about the advantages of being the best graduate from the university. Even though the answer remains the same, she seems brighter afterward. Shirota asks what has changed, and she explains the difference between institution and university, and insists on specificity. More importantly, it is now time for him to help her with her underwear. Shirota is stressed by the request, but Takamine reassures him, as thanks to the table's curved shape and their position on top, no one will see what happens under it. Defeated, Shirota crawls forward and quickly adjusts her underwear. Takamine teases him, locking his head between her legs to make him do it properly. Later on their way home, Shirota admits he enjoyed the campus sightseeing, but he still doesn't understand why she changed her question. Takamine explains she wants to be the all-knowing goddess, and for her, being specific is important. More importantly, she wants to use him as efficiently as possible if one day they are apart. To Shirota's surprise, he expects that Takamine would chain him everywhere, but she says it is a joke, as she is not a tyrant. Yet he must not rejoice, because she will use him as much as she wants for the remainder of their time together at school. Shirota freezes. He should feel relieved at the thought of being free later, but something twists in his heart, as he isn't sure he would be happy being separated from her. The next day at school, Shirota cannot stop replaying the look Takamine had yesterday with how she seemed sad. When he greets her, she instantly switches back to her usual self, but Shirota notices something wrong. Takamine's skirt is sitting strangely, and students are pointing phones at her. When he quietly tells her, she claims it's intentional, but then adjusts it anyway, as if she's worried he doesn't want other guys seeing her cakes. As they continue, he even notices she's only wearing one sock, which deepens his suspicion that something is off with her today. Then on the train, Shirota's anxiety grows. Takamine's usual perfection seems to have slipped. Watching her closely, he notices the physics of her melons bouncing in a way that makes it clear that she isn't wearing any pepperoni protectors at all. Before he can warn her, she catches him staring, and then as the doors close, part of her shirt gets caught, tugging down and exposing her secrets to the entire crowd. Shirota immediately remembers that anyone who sees her divine pairs will become immune to her powers. Thinking fast, he covers her with his own hands, blocking the view. Takamine wastes no time. She snaps her fingers and reverts time back to that morning, resetting the day completely. Shirota is left stunned, realizing she's redoing everything from the start. As he pieces it together, he realizes something crucial, that even though she treats him like a tool, the thought of losing him must have rattled her. That's why she suddenly became so clumsy. Quietly determined, Shirota makes a choice that he'll join a cram school and work hard so he can get into Ogaku and remain by her side. But as he steps into the cram school for the first time, ready to throw himself into studying, he unexpectedly collides with a stunning blonde, an animated version of Margot Robbie, who looks at him with recognition in her eyes. Shirota freezes, caught completely off guard. The moment they lock eyes, the blonde girl rushes in and throws her arms around Shirota, hugging him tightly. With a bright grin, she introduces herself as Ellie. After they finish signing up for lessons, the two naturally walk together, and memories start coming back to Shirota. He realizes he last saw her nearly 5 years ago, while Ellie, on the other hand, laughs as she recalls how she used to be taller than him, only to notice that he's grown up. Back then, they played endlessly until enrolling in different schools pulled them apart. Shirota remarks that she's changed a lot, as she looks more mature, stylish, and carries herself with surprising elegance. Ellie beams with pride at the compliment, flipping her hair as she announces that she's been doing amateur modeling. Then, she asks if he has plans afterward. When he admits he doesn't, she instantly drags him toward the park where they used to play as kids. Once they arrive, Shirota notices the familiar stairway that leads up to the very spot where he first encountered Takamine, though in the present, he doesn't recall the memory clearly. While he's lost in thought, Ellie suddenly snatches his hand and tugs him toward the fountain where they once had water balloon fights. Excitedly, she asks if he wants to play again, but Shirota, now a little more self-conscious, feels embarrassed, pointing out that they're not little anymore. Ellie, oblivious to his hesitation, bounds off to grab balloons anyway, her energy as uncontrollable as it was years ago. As she fills them up for Shirota, she cheerfully explains the rules again like nothing has changed. But when it comes to filling balloons for herself, she chooses oversized ones, puffing her cheeks with determination. Suddenly, one explodes in her hands, soaking her from head to toe. Shirota quickly offers her a towel, but Ellie waves it off with a grin, declaring she doesn't need it, since she isn't even wearing any plot armor. That one line makes Shirota fold, so in a panic he suggests they cool off with ice cream instead. On the way to the shop, he can't help worrying. Ellie is so carefree and has no guard up at all, and if Takamine ever catches him in this situation, she'll treat Ellie like a rag doll. By the time he comes back with a towel and 2 cones of ice cream, Ellie casually lifts her shirt to show she's already dried up, nearly flashing the entire park. Shirota almost drops the cones in horror, begging her not to expose her melons in public. She just laughs and says it's fine, because she only shows them for him, since their bond goes deeper than gender ever could. As they sit down, Ellie asks what school he's aiming for. Shirota's not even sure he'll attend one. He remembers Takamine telling him to join her at the same college, but with money being tight, he doesn't know if it's possible. When he admits this, Ellie tilts her head and bluntly asks if he's dating this girl. Flustered, Shirota panics, but she easily reads the look on his face. Smirking, she teases that he must be dreaming of giving the girl some good winery. Ellie awkwardly pats his back instead, only for Shirota to grin wider, claiming that any girl who invites him to her school must secretly like him. She offers him her ice cream, but it melts and drips onto his neck. Without hesitation, Ellie leans in and licks it off, sending Shirota into a meltdown. She giggles at his reaction, saying girls do this all the time, but his brain instantly flashes with cursed images of her and Takamine doing the double trouble. His panic only intensifies when, As if summoned by his guilty conscience, Takamine suddenly appears behind them. At first, she looks furious, but within seconds, her expression shifts to that teasing smile of hers, calling Shirota bold for fooling around in public. Shirota asks why she's here when she was supposed to be unwell. Takamine crosses her arms and declares she's always in top form. Then, switching back to her angry persona, she demands to know why he's being friendly with this Temu Margot Robbie. Ellie, instead of being insulted, lights up in delight, ecstatic that Takamine called her Margot Robbie. Ellie pulls out one of the balloons and explains they were just playing, but Takamine's face reddens when she mistakes it for something far less innocent. Still, she knows Shirota doesn't have the guts to make a move, so she directly asks Ellie about her intentions. Both of them insist they were only playing because of the summer heat, but Takamine's imagination runs wild again. When Ellie invites her to join, she envisions an entirely different three-way scenario, while Shirota nervously blurts out that he doesn't want to make her drenched. Takamine huffs and retorts that he doesn't have what it takes to make her want to get dirty anyway. When Ellie dashes off to refill balloons, Shirota quietly asks if Takamine's okay with this, only to get slapped hard across the face. She scolds him for being a shameless playboy and lectures him about focusing on exams and his future instead of fooling around. Just as Shirota starts sinking in shame, Ellie returns, admitting it was her idea and insisting she forced him to play. Seeing the pack of balloons in her hand, Takamine finally realizes she jumped to the wrong conclusion. Ellie introduces herself properly, and Takamine remembers her as the energetic girl who used to play with Shirota. Embarrassed by her own assumptions, Takamine turns to leave, but Ellie insists she stay and sends Shirota off to grab drinks. Alone together, Ellie apologizes for her behavior. Having gone to an all-girls school, she never really learned where to draw lines with boys. She explains it's natural for a woman to feel protective when another girl gets close to the man she loves, then openly compliments Takamine's looks. When Takamine tries to deny being in love with Shirota, Ellie calls her out, saying it's written all over her face. When Shirota returns, Takamine sternly warns Ellie not to say a word about it. Ellie agrees, then casually mentions she has a photo shoot, and skips off, but not before teasing that she'll see Shirota at cram school. Left alone, Takamine turns suspicious and accuses him of only going there to fool around. Shirota frantically explains that he joined because there are problems he struggles with, and he wants to study harder so he can enter the same university as her. The confession makes Takamine's heart flutter, though she gets annoyed that Ellie knew before she did. Promising to help him, she strips off her plot armor and reverses time just to reframe the moment. This time, she demands he thank her instead of arguing, handing him her underwear and ordering him to put it back on her. While he hesitantly does so, she softly admits that she only goes this far because he's working so hard for her sake. Once he's finished, she takes his hand and with a mischievous grin, tells him she's taking him home to drain his brain juice dry studying. That night, Shirota studies under her watchful eye, struggling to focus with Kuro also being there, but Takamine orders him to lock in, while she holds Kuro in her arm, telling him how Shirota is fighting for her sake. One day after extra lessons, Shirota walks out with Ellie, and somehow Takamine passes by and asks if they want to hang out, and Ellie suggests her regular family restaurant. For Shirota, it feels strange, as Takamine never shows this much emotion to anyone. His thoughts are interrupted when the waiter casually greets Ellie. They clearly know each other, and Ellie even orders for them. Then the waiter mentions she'll be off work in an hour. Shirota asks who she is, and Ellie says it's her friend from school, who always gives her extra fries. So today, Ellie will pay for everyone. Out of nowhere, Takamine mutters that she's on a diet, and Ellie quickly apologizes, then praises Takamine's hot, busty body. When the food arrives, Takamine only has tea, while Ellie's plate looks like something you fat pigs would order. Takamine asks about the day's lesson. Shirota says the tutor is great and easy to follow, and that it's enjoyable because Ellie is there. Ellie adds she feels the same, causing an instant sting for Takamine, especially when Ellie mentions they used to study together. Takamine snaps, asking if Shirota just likes studying with girls, since she herself had been on his list not long ago, in her house, home alone. Shirota tries to correct her, but Ellie takes it another way, excited because she knows how smart Takamine is. Ellie admits she and Shirota used to play too much and forget homework, unlike her. Takamine scoffs, saying she can't help it even if she's with them. Then she throws out how she once dressed up as a cat so Shirota would study. Shirota gags, saying that was her idea, but Ellie finds it fun, like Halloween, and suggests they all study together and have a sleepover. Shirota says he'll attend if it's serious, but Ellie nags about the sleepover since they used to do it too. Takamine snaps, saying it's dangerous, and she twists the story, telling Ellie how Shirota once used the rain falling as an excuse to stay at her place and then bump bellies with her at night. Shirota is horrified, but Takamine stomps on his foot to shut him up. Ellie doesn't get it, so Takamine continues that Ellie only knows the innocent Shirota, not the freaky one. Shirota protests, but Takamine teases that maybe people should hear her side since she knows him better than anyone, and Ellie catches the hint. Later, Ellie pulls Takamine aside for a talk while Shirota goes home. Ellie apologizes if Takamine thinks she's trying to take Shirota, assuring her she isn't, as she already has someone, and honestly, she prefers Takamine over Shirota. Takamine freezes, not understanding, until Ellie leaves with the same waiter from earlier, hand in hand, and only then does Takamine realize that this chick prefers scissors over hard rocks. When she meets Shirota again, he asks what they talked about. Takamine teases, saying they were discussing how degenerate he is. Shirota nearly dies on the spot, but she brushes it off as girl talk. As they pass the park, Takamine spots Ellie's balloon still in her bag and challenges Shirota, saying that the winner gets a favor from the loser. Shirota resists, but she growls, questioning why he would play with Ellie but not her. So they play. Shirota already knows he can't beat Takamine, and he also doesn't want to soak her dress, so he throws weak shots. But Takamine purposely jumps into one, soaking herself like Ellie earlier. She glares, asking if he only saw a wet girl that day or if it was something more. Shirota panics, which pisses her off, and she hurls all 4 balloons at him at once. Takamine then wins, and as her reward, she orders Shirota to lick her sweat. He freezes, remembering when Ellie licked the ice cream off his neck, and realizes that Takamine wants to top that. He begs her to stop as it's a public place, but she presses, even bringing up Ellie licking him the other day. He realizes she's jealous, so to please her, he says he'll lick her neck. But Takamine smirks and shows her clean neck. She wants somewhere sweaty like under her skirt, between her thighs, across her plots, or maybe all of them. Shirota protests, but she calls him a liar, and knowing she won't back down, he gives in. Behind the trees, Takamine lifts her dress. Shirota kneels and, flustered by her delicate skin, chooses her belly. With all that tension, he does it, while Takamine tries hard not to make a happy pleasure noise. When it ends, she tells him not to overthink, as they haven't seen each other much lately, and she just wants to be with him. She even apologizes as his memories of Ellie are now replaced with her, but that says enough, and confirms to him that Takamine is jealous. But the heat of the moment catches up, and Shirota ends up with a fever, passing out. On the last day of summer, Shirota and Takamine go on a vacation. She has helped him study without asking for anything in return, but he wants to repay her, so for once he wants to be a gentleman. They walk around, and Shirota mentions wanting coffee. Takamine whips out coupons and, as always, wants control. When Shirota returns with drinks, she rewinds time just to insist he use her coupons instead. She even pulls him to a quiet spot, which is rare for her. Later, in a store, Takamine points at a bunny doll, saying it's cute. Shirota secretly buys it, and when he gives it to her, she says she'd rather give him something than receive. She asks what else he wants to do. He says a boat ride, as it'll be his first, but it turns out that it's hers too. As he rows, Takamine gets annoyed and demands a turn. When he refuses, she jumps into the water, stripping to rewind time. This time, though, she puts her undies back on herself. Shirota points it out, and she storms off, saying he's too slow. He apologizes, worried the trip is a waste of her time, but she says it's because he's pushing himself instead of enjoying the moment. She reminds him that the whole reason she brought him here is to give him a gift for working hard, and he finally understands her weird behavior, so he thanks her for the help, the studying, and the vacation. That honesty catches her off guard. Flustered, Takamine finally agrees to follow his lead for the rest of the trip. A few days later, Shirota is supposed to study with Takamine, but on the way he runs into Ellie, and somehow she tags along. The 3 of them end up studying together, but Takamine is furious, while Ellie is over the moon to be in Takamine's room, and she even admits she has always wanted to study with her. Takamine can't take it. She snaps, asking why Ellie doesn't just go study with her scissor lover instead. Ellie shrugs, saying Rurika is too busy lately, so she has no one to play with. Takamine barks at her to go play on the playground if she wants games, but Ellie isn't offended at all. And that's when Shirota remembers something Ellie once said, that she prefers girls. His suspicion is confirmed the moment Ellie casually pokes at Takamine's assets while asking her a question. Takamine immediately stands up and sends Shirota out to buy drinks. He wants to refuse, afraid to leave her alone with Ellie, but one deadly glare from Takamine sends him running. Alone, Takamine doesn't mince words. She tells Ellie to leave, claiming teaching Shirota is already hard enough without another idiot present. Ellie just laughs, but before leaving, she asks if Takamine is in a relationship with Shirota. Takamine denies it flatly, but Ellie sees right through her. She teases that Shirota is hard to get close to, always missing hints which would exhaust anyone. That hits Takamine, and she admits Ellie is right, as no matter how much she tries to seduce him, his thick skull never notices. Ellie's surprised by her honesty, and Takamine backpedals, saying it's all about a friend of hers. Ellie plays along and asks what this friend has done. Takamine spills it all from the cat-like act. The bathroom stunt, every little attempt. Ellie seethes with jealousy but keeps her mouth shut. Takamine goes on, saying that if the man can't pick up hints from a woman as great as her friend, then something is wrong with him. Ellie asks if this man ever shows anything in return. Takamine thinks for a moment about the one night when the man rushes to her friend's place, worried sick about her, even planning a date, and studying hard to get into the same campus. Ellie nearly explodes listening to Takamine keep calling herself the friend, and Shirota the man. Takamine describes him as simple, not particularly special, but sincere, and someone who acts out of responsibility. Ellie jumps up, declaring that if someone is willing to dedicate themselves like study for her and plan a future with her, then that's love, plain and simple. Takamine freezes, as she hasn't mentioned his stupidity, but Ellie claims it's just a guess. Then she asks if Ellie came here just to touch her irresistible assets. Ellie apologizes but says it isn't her fault. Takamine's body is magnetic to both men and women. Takamine smirks, then offers to let her touch them anyway. When Shirota returns, he half expects Takamine to have thrown Ellie out with a suplex, but the sounds from inside make him curious. From the room, he hears Takamine scolding Ellie not to hold it so tight, while Ellie gushes that it's too soft. Shirota nearly loses his mind, but then Ellie squeals loudly about not wanting to be licked. Shirota's imagination goes wild until he realizes they're just playing with Kuro. Days pass, and the rainy season begins. On the way to school, Shirota and Takamine are glad the rain has stopped so their uniforms aren't soaked. But Takamine remarks that it works in her favor, as if she loses her plot protector, she can hide it under her blazer. Unlike in summer when her precious parts are too easy to see, that's when Shirota realizes that whenever she wears her blazer, she usually isn't wearing anything at all. She notices his face and asks if her story is boring, but he shakes his head so fast she decides to play a game. She tells him to turn around, and when she is done rewinding time, he has to guess which underwear piece she has lost before they reach the train station, and the winner gets to order the loser around. For Shirota, it's pure gambling. Takamine teases him to use his degenerate detector skills to detect the sound of fabric rubbing, the way she walks, but he shouts that he isn't some kind of wizard. She ups the stakes that if he wins, he can make her study in a swimsuit. As for her, letting a lowlife like him give her orders would be a blessing. He refuses, saying he doesn't want that, and he asks what she'd want if she won. She tells him that she wishes to tie him up and make him listen to her voice on repeat all night through headphones, and Shirota feels his dignity crumble. Still, he tries to analyze her walk carefully. When he spots a puddle, he thinks of using it to peek under her skirt, but stops himself. At the station, she asks for his answer. He guesses she has lost her top, and she tells him it's wrong, and that it's her bottom. She teases that he had plenty of chances but never used them, and Shirota admits he couldn't bring himself to peek under her skirt. Takamine looks disappointed, admitting she wished he had guessed right, even letting herself pass by that puddle for him. Hearing that, Shirota is stunned to know she actually wanted him to peek. Later, on the train, they talk about the school festival. Their class is doing a Cinderella play, and the teacher will soon assign roles, but Shirota hopes for nothing important. Takamine reminds him that last year he was just a human standee for the class signboard. Embarrassed, he asks how she knows, and she casually says she knows everything. She then declares she'll be Cinderella, so Shirota has to take a role too. In class, Takamine stands at the front and asks for volunteers. Then, everyone agrees she should be Cinderella. When it comes to the staff, no one raises a hand for the sound crew, so Shirota volunteers, only for Takamine to rewind time and block it. She drags him to the front, under the excuse of writing names. With no escape, Shirota stands beside her, until she deliberately presses her bakery against his lever and then bends over the desk, asking who wants to be the prince. Shirota nearly collapses from heat stroke, but no one notices. Plenty of boys volunteer, until the most popular guy, Seiya, stands up, and with him in, the rest back down. Takamine whispers that Seiya could become her second undies carrier, since as prince he'll be close to her. Plus he's smart, and could easily blackmail her for favors. That idea horrifies Shirota, as he doesn't want Seiya holding Takamine hostage. So, with no other choice, he signs up to be prince too. Takamine is thrilled when Shirota signs up for the play, though it's obvious Seiya's presence sparks his sudden burst of courage. When the votes come in, Shirota loses to Seiya without question. On the way home, Shirota asks if she really meant what she said about making Seiya her second wardrobe carrier. Takamine stops, looks back, and admits it was bait, just a trick to make him sign up as the prince. But since he lost, he can at least be the prince's guard, which means plenty of stage time anyway. She keeps walking, adding that she doesn't want him stuck as backstage crew, as deep down she wants him to even end up enjoying the festival. As the event approaches, rehearsals become daily. On the final prep day, everyone without a role is forced into backstage duties. Takamine personally gives Shirota his task, instantly sending her rabid fan club buzzing. Shirota realizes Takamine has never interacted with him openly at school until today, and that alone makes him nervous, as she always has a plan. While painting scenery, he messes up the lights. A classmate scolds him, saying there's no time to fix it, and murmurs about him being useless spread. Before it escalates, Takamine rewinds time. She pulls him behind the backdrop and scolds him herself while he worked. Then, while he's slipping on her undies, someone calls for her. Takamine pokes her head out, leaving Shirota trembling as he tries not to botch the job. The tension feels like a ticking bomb, but she stays perfectly calm. When she finally steps out, the undies are still halfway up. Shirota wants to warn her, but before he can, she leaps to catch a falling board, smoothly pulling them into place mid-jump. He's stunned by her composure, but she only tells him to get back to work. By evening, the set is complete, the moon is high, and Takamine delivers a short speech before sending everyone home, except Shirota, and she calls him to the rooftop. He braces for a scolding, but instead she just wants to enjoy the night sky, knowing that this is their last school festival before exams take over. Takamine confesses she's always loved the night before the festival, especially this year with her wardrobe carrier by her side. She wishes they had met in first year. Shirota realizes she brought him here just to share the moment, and he promises he'll be there with her at the campus festival too, as he's determined to stay with her all the way to college. Takamine grows quiet, then admits she used to dislike Cinderella. She hated the idea of staying silent about what you wanted, and to her, if you want something, you fight for it. And there are no fairy godmothers in real life. Still, she understands Cinderella's cage, the frustration of wanting but being unable to grasp. This time, she can finally say it. Takamine steps closer and takes Shirota's hand. She's about to confess, but then she sneezes, and Shirota, missing the cue entirely like an absolute buffoon, says she should have told him sooner she wanted to go home. Her hands are ice cold, so he slips his coat over her shoulders without thinking. Takamine lets the moment pass, and they walk home together. The next day, the festival begins. Excitement buzzes through the school, but in the corner, Shirota trembles. Takami notices and drags him out to tour other classes. Her glare alone is terrifying, but holding his hand in public makes it worse, as her fanatics stab him with death stares sharp enough to cut. Then, she drags him into the haunted house, and inside, Shirota thinks keeping distance will keep rumors down. But Takamine starts trembling, clearly terrified. He remembers her fear of thunder and offers to leave, but being prideful as always, she denies being scared. But the moment a ghost jumps out, she screams and rewinds time. Even so, Shirota gently offers again, and she insists she's only acting scared to calm him down. Within a minute, another ghost appears. She screams, rewinds again, and then suspiciously asks if he's cursed. Shirota reassures her that it's all fake, and again he offers to leave, but again she refuses. On the third attempt, she pushes forward, but when a ghost grabs her leg and a spider drops from above, she loses it. Clinging to Shirota, clothes in disarray, practically flashing him everything. Two girls happen to walk by, and thinking fast, Shirota poses as one of the ghosts, shielding Takamine until they pass. When they finally escape, Shirota apologizes, realizing she went this far just to distract him from his nerves. Takamine brushes it off, saying her panic was just an act. Then she points out how he improvised as a ghost, which means he's improving. Shirota knows she's covering her weakness, but lets her have it. Back in class, panic erupts, as Seiya still hasn't shown up. When the door opens, he stumbles in, looking like he fell from a building. He brushes it off as a small accident before coughing blood. The room explodes in panic, and he's rushed to the clinic. Shirota urges Takamine to rewind time, but she doesn't. Instead, she declares they have to replace the prince. Everyone freezes. Shirota knows how important this play is to her, but she's dead serious. With only an hour left, she says they can cut an unimportant role, and the prince's guard only has 2 lines anyway. Shirota is now the prince, and backstage, Shirota mutters the prince's lines under his breath. He's only rehearsed twice, and all he can do now is cling to the main points. On stage, the stepmother sips her tea, grimaces, and throws it out, straight onto Cinderella's dress. The audience gasps at the sudden glimpse of her assets, and a wave of cheers erupts. Even Ellie, usually Takamine's biggest supporter, fumes with jealousy. The class watches from the wings, stunned by the crowd's reaction. When the stepmother and sisters leave, Takamine sings Cinderella's sorrowful part. The fairy godmother appears, blesses her, and the curtains close. When they open again, Cinderella dazzles in her beautiful gown. Shirota's nerves tighten as his entrance is coming. A classmate pats him on the shoulder, cheering him on. Then Takamine calls over, telling him simply to have fun. That strikes him, and he remembers the rooftop moment, when she said she just wanted to enjoy the festival. The prince is called, and Shirota steps into the spotlight, takes a breath and faces the crowd. But when he sees every eye fixed on him, his body freezes, and a word comes out. Seeing his struggle, Takamine pushes him down, removes her plot armor, and resets time to before his entrance. She drags him into the changing room, scolding him for being so careless. She tells him not to care about the audience because no one's paying attention to him anyway, and advises him to just focus on her during the performance. Harsh as her words sound, Shirota feels the kindness in them. This time, he enters with confidence. He asks Cinderella for a dance, and Takamine gladly accepts. Relieved he nailed his first line, Shirota waits for her solo before his next cue. When the lights go out, he opens his eyes and finds his face buried against Takamine. As she sings in her angelic voice, he carefully helps her put her plot protectors back on. When the lights return, he manages to get into position just in time, and the story continues smoothly. At the climax, the prince visits Cinderella's house to test the glass slipper. But suddenly Seiya storms in, claiming Shirota is a fake who took his role while he was injured. Shirota freezes again. As this wasn't in the script, Takamine quickly adjusts, but Seiya goes further, saying that Takamine shouldn't let a filthy, crusty guy like Shirota touch her, bragging that he's been applying hand cream all week. Shirota realizes Seiya is just jealous, wanting to be the one to touch her. Shirota gets angry that Seiya is ruining Takamine's last festival. Cutting her off, he declares that even if he is an imposter, he won't give up on her, and someone as selfish as Seiya doesn't deserve her anyway. His words move the audience, Takamine herself turning him into the true hero of the play. The narrator teases the crowd, asking who Cinderella will choose, but Takamine suddenly kisses Shirota on stage, shocking everyone. She pulls him off stage, and the two run out of the theater, sending the audience into chaos. Later, the girls ask if she really kissed Shirota, and Takamine casually says she only did what was needed to save the play. As the festival winds down, she praises Shirota for his acting, while he secretly wonders if the kiss was a reward for being obedient. When he asks her why she kissed him, Takamine says she'll do it again and again until he understands, hinting there's more behind it. Shirota assumes it's because she wants him to be her slave in university too, but Takamine, frustrated, resets time again when he gets it wrong. Since she has to attend the closing ceremony, she tells him to think carefully, and until he figures out the real reason, he'll remain her beloved slave. And for the last time, Shirota put the undies onto Takamine, but this time he was willing to do it, secretly wishing that they will stay together for a long time. Comment down below, Peach Protectors, if you watch.